With the new set March Machines coming out, there are many new cards, but even more importantly, there is a new card type. The new card type battles are similar to Planeswalkers in the fact that you can attack them down and transform them for your own benefit. The reason that another card type is important is because this means that we can finally have a 9/10 GOYF. So in today's video, we're going to be adding 2 battles to a Jund list. The first battle that we are adding is Invasion of Tarkir. This is a 2-mana battle that says when Invasion of Tarkir enters the battlefield, you may reveal any number of dragons from your hand. When you do, Invasion of Tarkir deals X plus 2 damage to any other target, where X is the number of cards revealed this way. This means that this is just a 2-mana shock in our deck because we aren't playing any other dragons. But if we attack down the battle for 5 damage, it flips into Defiant Thundermaw. That says whenever a dragon you control attacks, it deals 2 damage to any target. And the other battle that we're going to be playing is Invasion of Asgold, which is a 2-mana battle that says when Invasion of Asgold enters the battlefield, target player sacrifices creature or planeswalker and loses 1 life. And when you deal 4 damage to it, it flips into Ashen Reaper, which is a 2/1 menace that gets a +1/+1 counter if a permanent was put into your graveyard from the battlefield this turn. But just because we are playing the battle doesn't mean that we have all card types, so we had to add additional card types to the deck. For example, we have to play Tarfire and Bitter Blossom so that we can get the tribal card type into the graveyard. But when looking at the rest of this deck, other than adding the battles and the tribal cards, this is a fairly stock Jund list, but with the ability to get a 9/10 Tarmogoyf. So in today's video, we are going to be trying our best to do that and seeing how powerful the battles are in the modern metagame. Match 1, we're on the draw, but hand looks fine. Opponent goes turn 1 Plains into a Sigarda's Aid, casting out an Ornithopter. We untap, drawing a Saga. We will fetch Shock or a Blood Crypt and Unholy Heat this now. Opponent plays out a Saga into a Stoneforge Mystic, getting a Colossus Hammer. We untap, find another land. We'll play our Saga out and dash our Ragavan. An opponent trades. Opponent plays a land and holds up Saga activation. We draw another Ragavan. We'll play out our Bloodstained Mire and hold up activation and threaten a removal spell. Our end step, they make a construct. In their main phase, they activate Inkmoth, find a hammer, and it seems like they're going to go for it, which they do, and we just have nothing to do here, so we're going to scoop them up and get on to sideboarding. We're going to take out a bunch of bad removal spells and discard spells for better sideboard cards. Game 2, our starter has a Haywire Mite and a Ragavan, gotta keep. Turn 1, we'll play out a Mountain into a Ragavan. Opponent plays Plains into Esper Sentinel. We untap, drawing a land. We'll attack with Ragavan. They take the trade, and we'll fetch Shock, putting in a Tarmogoyf. Opponent goes Plains into a Sanctifier, and we top deck a Fable. We'll fetch out a Swamp and cast our Fable, then attack in. Opponent takes it, going down to 16. Opponent plays out a Forge Tender into an Urza's Saga, then casts out a Sigarda's Aid and a Colossus Hammer. Pretty good turn for them, and they attack in for 12. We top deck a Fatal Push. We'll loot away our lands, going Alpine Moon and Ragavan. We'll attack in with our Goblin, then cast our Alpine Moon, naming Urza's Saga, then playing out a Haywire Mite and holding up Push and Haywire Mite activation. Opponent plays Inkmoth Nexus into a Giver, then runs out a Ornithopter. On the end step, we will Fatal Push the Giver. We top deck a Bitter Blossom. We flip a Reflection, so we'll play a Bitter Blossom and hardcast our Ragavan. And next turn, we get to start copying Haywire Mite and killing all of their equipments and artifacts. Opponent top decks a Pure Steel Paladin. And then they attack in with Sanctifier. We'll block with Tarmogoyf and kill the Colossus Hammer. We untap, make a 1/1, and draw a Wrenn 6 for turn. We'll copy our Tarmogoyf with a Reflection, attacking with everything but Ragavan. They block our Goblin token. Post combat, we'll run out a Wrenn 6 and ping them down to 7. And opponent scoops them up. Let's get into game 3. Game 3, our starter's a little slow here, so I'm going to put it back. Our 6 is also pretty tough, so we're going to go down to 5. And our 5 looks way better. We'll put back a land and a Tarmogoyf. It goes turn 1 Plains into a Sigarda's Aid, and also putting an Ornithopter onto the battlefield. We top deck a Bitter Blossom. We'll play out our Wood Foothills and pass. Opponent plays out a Saga, and then passes the turn. We'll fetch for our Triumph, and we'll play out our Forest. And I think they would have gone for it if they had it, so I'm going to take a turn off and cast this Bitter Blossom. Opponent casts out another Sigarda's Aid, and passes back. We make ourselves a 1/1, top deck another Wrenn, so we'll play out a Wrenn, tick up on our Foothills, and hold up Tarfire this turn. And then their upkeep will just fetch out a Mountain here. They float a mana before Saga goes away, and plays a Springleaf Drum. Then they run out of Sanctifier, and then they're passing the turn to us, so we'll untap, make ourselves a 1/1, drawing Besage You. We'll tick up on Wooded Foothills, play an EE out on 1, pop it immediately, and play a Wooded Foothills for turn. Attacking in for 1. Opponent plays Arid Mesa into a Sigarda's Aid, then casts an Ornithopter and attacks in for 2. Make another 1/1 in the upkeep, drawing Tarmogoyf. Gonna lead on Besageing the Sigarda's Aid, ticking up, getting Besage You back, and playing our tapped Blood Crypt. Opponent goes straight to combat, putting us down to 10, then plays out an Urza's Saga, and passes. So on the end step, we will Besage You the Saga. Untap, finding a land, we'll tick up on Besage You again, play out our Tarmogoyf, play out a Foothills, Starfire one of the Ornithopters, and attacking for 3, and they block one of them, taking 2 down to 16. Opponent untaps and plays a Stoneforge Mystic, grabbing a Cauldra, oof, and then playing out a Reality Chip. We'll Besage You the Reality Chip, untap, getting another 1/1, and drawing an Invasion of Asgold this turn. So we'll lead on the invasion. They sack the Ornithopter, losing a life. We will down tick with Rin, pinging the Stoneforge Mystic. They add our other Rin in 6, killing the Stoneforge, and we'll attack in with everything but the GOYF. Opponent casts an On Thin Ice, killing our Tarmogoyf, then attacks our Rin in 6, killing it, and then casts another Sanctifier. We untap, making another 1/1, drawing Fatal Push for turn, and we'll attack them with everything. Then buy our Gigantha and hold up push and hope they don't top deck anything too good. Opponent goes straight to combat and attacks us for 4. Then cast an Ornithopter, but that's not going to do it, because our last card, Enhanced Cauldron. We untap, drawing a land. We will push the Ornithopter and attack in for 6. An opponent scoops him up. Let's get into match number 2. Match 2, we're on the play. Enhanced slow, but I'm going to keep it. Turn 1 will lead on Woodfoot Hills. And looks like we're up against Tron. We draw another land. We'll shock and tomb and cast our Tarmogoyf. Opponent plays out of mine. We'll run out our Rin. Down tick on the opponent. Play land and attack in for 1. An opponent grabs a tower on the end step. Opponent plays out the tower and plays out a relic. Then plays out a sphere, cracks it, and casts a Stirrings, revealing a chromatic star. Plays out a sphere, cracks it for green, then plays a star. They pass. We draw another land for turn. We'll attack in for 3. They're down to 15. We'll run out our Bitter Blossom and play Forest. Down ticking Rin and put them to 14. On the instep, they cast a Warping Whale, making a 1/1. They attack and kill Rin in 6. They crack Star for green, then cast a Sylvan Scrying, grabbing another tower. They play that and then cast a Wormcoil Engine. We untap, draw a Invasion of Asgold, and we're just going to scoot up here. We can't beat a Wormcoil Engine. For sideboard, we're going to take out 3 push, Invasion of Asgold, Nile Spellbomb, and a Bitter Blossom for Haywire Mite, Stonebrain, Pithy Needle, Boseiju, and 2 Alpine Moons. Game 2, our starter hand looks fine. Turn 1, we're going to lead on Thoughtseize. Tron's about the only deck I would do this. And their hand is double Boseiju. I guess we'll take the map. Opponent plays a Boseiju and passes. Play out Bloodstained Mire and cast a Ragavan. Opponent plays out another Boseiju without floating a mana. I don't know what to say about this game so far. We untap, finding a Stonebrain. We'll attack in with Ragavan, exiling a Relic. We will cast that. Play out our Boseiju and cast a Stonebrain. And they Nature's Claim this. And they pass back. We draw another Heat. We attack in with Ragavan, exiling Force of Vigor. We will Thoughtseize the opponent. And we'll take one of the Sylvan Scryings. And then pop the Relic, drawing an Alpine Moon. Opponent passes. We attack with Ragavan, exiling a Stirrings. We cast that, finding an Urza Saga. Play that out, and we will buy our Gigantha. Opponent cast a Sylvan Scrying off of a mine that they found, grabbing a tower. We draw a land for turn, back in for 2, exiling a tower. We play out Alpine Moon, naming Urza's Power Plant, cast an Inquisition, taking a Scrying, and this game should be over. They play out a tower into a star. They crack their star, and they pass, and we'll make a construct on the instep. Untap, drawing a Bitter Blossom, we'll make another construct, and they dismember our construct, and we'll pick up a Shadow Spear, attack in with Ragavan, exiling an Urza's Mine, and we'll pass back to the opponent. Opponent untaps, casts a Stirrings, and concedes. Let's get into game 3. Game 3, our hand's a little too weak against Tron, so we're gonna mull. Our 6 is way better. We'll put back this Unholy Heat. Opponent goes turn 1 Forest into a Stirrings, getting a Power Plant. We top deck a Saga. We'll fetch Shock and a Blood Crypt, and lead on Inquisition. And we'll take the Relic here. Opponent plays a Power Plant and passes. We'll play out a Saga and cast our Ragavan. And on the end step, they claim our Saga. They play a Mine into an Expedition map. We top deck a GOYF. We'll attack in for 2, exiling a Mine off their top. We'll play a GOYF and play out an Urza's Saga. On our end step, they find an Urza's Tower. Oh no, they play Tower into an O-Stone. They draw Forest for turn, attack in for 7, and they pop the O-Stone. We'll play Forest and activate Saga. They cast out a Sylvan Scrying, grabbing a Boseiju. Then play out a Mine and pass. We untap, drawing a Thoughtseize. We'll make another construct. We're going to grab Pith Needle, naming Boseiju. Play a tap tomb and attack in for 3. An opponent slams a Karn and down ticks on our Pithy Needle. We draw an Unholy Heat and we'll attack them. They go down to 11. We'll play a Rin in 6. Tick up on a Bloodstained Mire, fetch out our Mountain, and cast Invasion of Asgold. And they sack Karn, going down to 10. Opponent plays out a Relic and pops it immediately, then runs out of Forest. Top deck a land. We'll tack in with both of our constructs. Opponent Boseiju's one of our constructs. We'll grab a Swamp. We'll buy Gigantha, down tick them, and play a Verdant. Opponent casts a Cityscape Leveler, killing our Rin in 6. We draw a Bitter Blossom for turn. We'll attack in for 2, and they block. I forgot we don't have Delirium anymore. Oops. So we'll just run out Bitter Blossom. An opponent attacks and destroys Invasion of Asgold. We're down to 11. Then they cast an O-Stone. In our upkeep, we get a 1/1, and we draw a Rin in 6. So we'll play out Rin and tick up on a Verdant. Then we'll grab a Blood Crypt and cast out our Gigantha. And on their instep, they find the line to kill us. So we're going to scoop them up and get into match number 3. Match 3, we're on the draw, but with a fine hand. Opponent goes turn 1 island. We'll fetch Shock and a Blood Crypt and Inquisition them. And it looks like we're up against a Cascade deck, so we'll take the Brazen Borrower. Opponent plays out a Forest, and then our upkeep, they ice down our Blood Crypt. We'll play our Saga out into a Nihil Spellbomb. They play out an island and find a Shardless Agent. We untap, finding a Thoughtseize, so we'll play out Forest and plan on making some constructs. They play an Islet and attack in for 10. We'll make a construct on their end step, untap, finding a Heat. And we're actually just going to pass priority here. We don't need to float mana, and I can get Delirium to kill both of these rhinos. We'll grab Shadow Spear, then we'll Fatal Push a rhino, and they have a Force Negation. Yep, and I don't think we have any outs here, so we'll just scoop them up and get on to sideboarding. We're going to take out 3 Bitter Blossom and 2 Invasion of Tarkir for Terminate, Collective Brutality, the Stone Brain, and 2 EEs. Game 2, our starter looks perfectly fine. An opponent has a turn 0 Gemstone Cavern. We'll play out Bloodstained Mire and pass. On their end step, we'll fetch out our Triumph, and on our upkeep, they ice down our land. And we find another EE, so we'll play out Verdant and pass. And no land for the opponent. And on our upkeep, they have another ice. We find a Fatal Push, we'll run out our Saga. Opponent plays out a Steam Vents and cast a Shardless Agent, cascading into a Footfalls. We top deck a land, so we'll lead on EE, pop it immediately, dock in a Tomb, and cast our Tarmogoyf. An opponent attacks and we will block, and then they evoke out a Fury, so a nice 3 for 1. And they cast out another Shardless Agent. We top deck another Fable, we'll float a mana, and we'll grab a Shadow Spear here. Play out another EE, pop it now, and then cast our Invasion of Asgold. Opponent untaps and suspends a Crashing Footfalls. We find a Tarmogoyf, but we're going to play out our Fable. And on our instep, they Petty Theft our token. And opponent suspends another Footfalls. We draw Boseiju. We'll loot away Boseiju and a Fable, finding a Brutality and a GOYF. We'll run out Tarmogoyf and pass back. And they have another Petty Theft. An opponent does nothing. We find a Stone Brain. We flip our Fable and cast out another GOYF. And on our instep, they play out a Borrower, and we'll just push that. Opponent casts a Dead Gone on our Fable, then passes back. We find a Saga, we'll run that out. Equip the GOYF with a Shadow Spear and attack in. An opponent has a Boseiju for our Shadow Spear. We'll just find a tap Blood Crypt. An opponent's down to 7. Throw on another GOYF and pass back. On their upkeep, they cast out a Footfalls. Opponent passes back to us, and we top deck a Tarfire. So we'll just go to combat and attack them. And they go for a chump block, so we'll cast our Collective Brutality, draining them for 2 and gaining 2 life. An opponent scoops them up. Let's get into game number 3. Game 3, our star looks quite powerful. Opponent goes turn 1 to spin some rhinos. We top deck a Ren, so we'll Shock and a Blood Crypt and Thoughtseize the opponent. And Shardless Agent's the best card in the hand, so we'll take that. Untap, finding a Saga, so we're going to cast another Thoughtseize. And they drew another Shardless, so I think we have to take it. And we'll run out of Bloodstained Mire. And no land for the opponent, so we'll fetch out our Triumph. And we draw another Fable, so we'll play Saga, then play out our Ren and 6 and get a land back. And again, no land. We top deck a Shadow Spear. We'll play a Bloodstained Mire, fetch out a Swamp, then tick up, play out a Fable, and run out our Shadow Spear. And on our end step, they dead our token. And again, no lands. We top deck a Heat, so we're going to discard land and our battle. And we'll float a mana off a Saga, grabbing a Nihil Spellbomb, play out an EE, and we'll immediately pop it. Tick up on our Urza Saga, and in response, they evoke out an Endurance. So we'll play out our Bloodstained Mire, fetch up a Mountain, and cast out another Fable. Opponent untaps and evokes out a Fury, dealing 2 to our Shaman and doing 2 to our Ren and 6. We untap, drawing a Tarmogoyf, and we'll loot away our Unholy Heat, drawing an Inquisition. We will cast Inquisition on the opponent, and we'll take their Violent Outburst, tick up on a land, and play out a Fable, and play out our land. And opponent scoops them up. Let's get into match number 4. Match 4, we are on the play, and hand just a little too slow, so we got a mull. Our 6 is much better. We'll keep and put back an Unholy Heat. Lead on turn 1 Triumph. An opponent goes turn 1 Swift Spear, must be up against Burn. We untap, drawing a Fable. We will push the Swift Spear and play out our land, grabbing Forest and playing out Spellbomb. Opponent suspends a Rift Bolt, then cast out a Swift Spear. We top deck another push, so we'll play out Ren, tick up on land, fetch Shock for Blood Crypt, and Fatal Push the Swift Spear. Opponent bolts us in the upkeep, then cast a Skewer the Critics, and Lava Spikes us down to 5. We top deck a Ragavan, we'll tick up on a Woodfoot Hills, play out a Fable, and then fetch out a Mountain, cast our Ragavan. Opponent plays out a Sunbaked Canyon, and then cast a Lightning Helix. We draw a Ragavan, we'll loot away Bitter Blossom and Rag. We draw Saga and a Fable, we'll attack in for 4, exile in a Rift Bolt, we'll cast our Fable, then play our Saga out and Rift Bolt the opponent. We just got a fade. No! Let's get on sideboarding. We're going to trim 3 Bitter Blossoms, a Ren and 6 for Boseiju, Brutality, Pirate Spellbomb, and a Haywire Might. Game 2, our hand just a little too slow, got a mull. And our 6 is way better, we'll just put back a Thoughtseize. We'll go turn 1, fetch out a Swamp, and Inquisition the opponent. They have a 1 land hand, so we're going to take one of the Goblin Guides. They go land into Goblin Guide. They attack us, revealing Tarfire. We'll play out our land, fetch a Mountain, and Tarfire this Goblin Guide. And they found a land off the top, playing out Swift Spear, attacking us down to 15, fetching out a Mountain, then casting out a Skewer. We draw a land. We'll play Urza's Saga and Unholy Heat the Swift Sphere. They play out a land into a Suspended Rift Bolt. Then we top deck a GOYF. We'll play land and activate Saga this turn. On our end step, they charm us. They bolt us in the upkeep, find a spike, and now we know they have Skullcrack, so the opponent got us. Get on to match number 5. Match 5, we're on the draw, but have a great hand. Opponent goes turn 1 Steam Vents into a Ragavan. We top deck a Thoughtseize, and we'll just go Tarfire on the Ragavan. Opponent casts out a Ragavan and plays a Scalding Tarn. Top deck a GOYF. We'll fetch Shock for Tomb, cast a Thoughtseize, and they spell Pierce it, so we'll run out of Ragavan, and they have a Bolt for a Ragavan, and they exile land off of our top. We draw a Shadow Sphere for turn, so we're just going to run out of GOYF and hope it resolves, and they have a counter for it. They attack us for 2, exiling an Urza's Saga, then run out tapped land. Top deck a Bitter Blossom, so we'll just cast out another GOYF, and they have another counter, RIP. They attack us for 2, and then exile a Fable. We find a land, so we'll run out another GOYF, play out our land, fetch out a Forest, and play out our Shadow Spear, and they discard a Flooded Strand off of the Fable, and no attacks from the opponent. Top deck a Beseiju, tap out for a Bitter Blossom, and it resolves. We'll pass back to the opponent, plan on Beseijuing this Fable, and nothing from the opponent. We make a 1/1 in our upkeep, drawing a Rin for turn, so we'll cast that out, and opponent has a counter for that, and we'll just pass back. Opponent copies the Shaman, and attacks him with everything. We'll block with the Fairy and the Tarmogoyf, then they run out another Ragavan, and we top deck a Ragavan. We'll cast out an Invasion of Asgold, that resolves, and we'll make them sacrifice one of their creatures. They sacrifice the Ragavan, and we'll go to combat, killing our battle, and we'll pass back to the opponent. Opponent Unholy Heats our battle, then dashes out a Ragavan, and we'll block with our Fairy token, and they have a Bolt. No! Then we will Beseiju the Fable, getting so close to the best GOYF. We were just 1 away. No! Let's get on to sideboarding. We're going to take out 2 Inquisitions and 2 Invasion of Tarkir for Invasion of Asgold, Terminates, and an Unlicensors. For game 2, our starting hand looks pretty reasonable. We'll shock in a Stomping Ground and pass. Opponent goes turn 1 Bauble, looking at our top, then runs out another Bauble, looking at their top. We draw an Unholy Heat return, so we'll play out Saga and 2 Unlicensors. On the end step, opponent casts a Consider, so we will eat a Consider and a Bauble. Then opponent casts out a Shredder on their turn. We top deck a Thoughtseize, so we'll run another Saga, and hold up Saga activation and Hearse. Opponent dashes out a Ragavan, so we'll make a Construct and go for the block. Then opponent bolts us, knifing away an Expressive Iteration. So we'll exile their Bolt and an Unholy Heat. We draw a land for turn, so we'll make a Construct, grabbing a Shadow Spear. Then we'll fetch up a Swamp and cast a Thoughtseize. And we're going to take the Expressive Iteration. Opponent attacks us for 2, putting us down to 9. On the end step, we will exile both of their expressives. We top deck a Rin for turn, so we'll float a mana off the Saga, grabbing a Nihil Spellbomb, and we will crack the Nihil Spellbomb, drawing a card, trying to find a land, and we find a Terminate. We'll go to combat and attack them for 3, and they cast a Dress Down, and we'll just go for Unholy Heat on the Ledger Shredder. When it dashes out a Ragavan, exiling a Rin 6, and this means that they're going to have lethal with 2 bolts in hand, and they didn't end up casting our Rin. Interesting. We top deck a Fatal Push, and we'll just pass back, holding up Tarfire and Fatal Push. On our end step, they bolt us. They dash out a Ragavan, and we'll go for a Tarfire on it, and they counter it, and then we cast a Fatal Push on it. And on the end step, we'll activate Hearse, eating Ragavan and a Shredder. We top deck a GOYF, untaps and puts an EE on 2, and immediately pops it. So we'll activate Hearse, taking Counterspell, and we find a land for turn. We cannot crack it because we know about the Bolt. They untap and crack an Islet, and we top deck a Push. They just play Steam Vents and pass, and we top deck a Thoughtseize. We cannot use like any of our spells. Opponent just plays a Bauble and passes back to us. We draw another Bitter Blossom. Opponent plays a land and passes. We find another land, so we're just gonna go to discard and discard our battle. Opponent just passes back, and we'll just discard our Rin 6 to hand size. And we still have not found our freaking Tarmogoyf. Opponent casts out a Ledger Shredder, and I guess we will Fatal Push it for whatever reason. We draw a Rin for turn. Guess we'll just pass back. I don't know what to do. They run out an island. We untap, finding a Terminate. They cast a Consider, fitting a Murktide. Oh my god, just give me a damn Tarmogoyf. Opponent bolts us. No, please. And we found the GOYF. Let's go! We have the world's largest GOYF, and they just have a Bolt, RIP, but we got the GOYF! Alright, well, we did only go 2-3 at the deck. We did get the goal of getting a 9-10 GOYF in our last game, thankfully. Overall, I think the battles are not very good in this deck, and if you want to play any of them, I think the best one is by far Invasion of Asgold, but even this card just seems super duper underpowered, and sadly, I don't think any of the battles are worth playing in the Jund list, maybe in other decks, but as for Jund, definitely not worth the risk. But we did get the 9-10 GOYF, so anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.